consciously. Want to have fun? Yeah, we can have fun. We can play. Perfect. Thank you. Are we ready to go? You are watching Visionaries, and I'm on my best behavior today. That's because we're joined by a brand strategist. He's a behavior analyst. He's also quite knowledgeable about neuroscience and a 4-time best-selling author, Timothy Maurice Webster. So I'm a little bit worried that he's scrutinizing my every move. So here goes. Hi, Timothy. Thank you so much for joining us. We have to do the South African handshake, innit?
Okay. Yes.
There we go.
Sharples.
Hola.
Of course.
Thank you so much for joining us.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Talking about scrutinizing people, I Googled you, listened to the podcast, researched you extensively, and I found out a lot of information about your work, but very little about you as an individual. Is that purposeful?
Some of it is. Some of it is that my childhood was quite painful. Like, I remember growing up, there was a Christmas where we were so broke. Let me tell you how broke we were. I don't know if you've ever been this kind of broke. You've been broke.
I've been broke.
Okay, well, let me just tell you, there's levels in this brokenness. I remember my mom would wake us up at midnight, because in the States, Christmas is a big thing.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It's a big thing. So we didn't have money to not even think about gifts. And my mom would wake us up, and we had this window in the front of the house, and she would say, come, it's Santa. And then when we get there, she's like, you were too slow, you missed it.
Are you kidding me?
True story.
And so you would think, oh my goodness, it's my fault that I didn't get to see.
And my sister was slow, and I would blame it on her. Because I would get her up and tell her to come, and then.
How many siblings did you have?
One.
It was the two of you. And you grew up with your mom?
And dad, yeah.
And dad.
Yeah.
Which part of the States are you from?
So as a kid, I grew up on a farm in North Carolina, on the East Coast. So from everyone knows New York, right? So if you were to drive from New York down to North Carolina, it takes probably about 10, 12 hours. Yeah, straight down.
When you speak about the context of lacking resources and the hardships that are attached to that, one then wonders if everything in your world was like that. Were there moments of happiness? I mean, were there other things to make up for that? Because some might say we were poor, but we were happy, or we had love. Yeah.
It's all context, it's like, so we were fine we were average, because we grew up on a farm, and we kind of, had food, we had our own sort of stuff, we had, we would grow our own stuff.
Yeah, it's a subsistence.
But when you juxtapose that, which is what I think is a challenge in South Africa. So when you juxtapose that to people you go to school with who live on a golf course. So you're fine on your farming ways, and then you have to go to school. And I remember when I was a teenager, one of my closest friends, this sums up the whole thing. So on our farm, my father had a car called a Rambler. This was the worst car in the history of cars. So he had one of those. He would come pick me up from school in that. And then my friend, Chad, he had a Jaguar. So I can't make this stuff up.
You laugh about it now.
So I can't make this up.
Must have been hard.
My cousin, Derek, would have to go with us. So for weeks, Derek would say, tell your dad to come pick us up at the barbershop, which is next door to the school, because I can't be having. So this was like, as a kid, this is traumatizing. Like, so anyway, but my dad would make a joke out of it. That's what you mentioned. What was the fun part? My dad would come and start hooting really loud, blowing the horn. Y'all seen Tim? Y'all seen Tim?
Oh my gosh! And you're like, Dad, I don't want anybody to know I'm going home with you.
In the Rambler.
Oh no!
Yeah. So he was. My dad made everything funny. Like, he was a clown. Like, he would go get the mailbox. In the States, there's all these mailboxes. You go to the mailbox, and he would see bills, and then put them back, and then leave a note for the mailman saying, we don't have money for that, so take this bill back.
Oh my word!
I can't make this stuff up. It was.
Oh.
Yeah.
And your mom? What was she like?
My mom. So she worked in a factory. She lost her job because of the jobs went to China. The factory jobs she was working went to China. So she was just like real churchy. Like, when as a kid, my dad was like, he was a bit of a player, and it's fortunate. I'm just amazed that I didn't get that player gene. So,
it doesn't run in the family.
No, I don't know what happened.
That's good.
I'm such a good guy.
Oh, really?
No, you know what I mean? Like, I feel blessed that I didn't get that player gene.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my dad was a bit of a player. He drank a lot when I was a small child. And my mom was like that praying mom. So she'd be like, you know, one day you're going to be a deacon. And then all of a sudden one day he became a deacon. So I was like, wow, my mom, this praying thing is deep. Like it actually worked.
What sort of student were you like? Were you naughty at all? I mean, it's hard to imagine you misbehaving actually.
I didn't enjoy studying because I felt the work was too easy. When I was 10, I was put in an advanced class where they moved me forward and they moved me away from my friends. So I became angry a little bit at intellectual things. I felt like it was a symbol of removing me from my friends. It was also a way, I would get angry with teachers because I felt like they were demeaning. They looked down on us black students because all the teachers were primarily white.
Sure.
And they looked down, I felt like they looked down on us. Like they were talking down. I'm like, this stuff is easy. Why are you talking to me that way? You know what I mean? Anyway, yeah.
So even then, you were very, very focused on, you know, human relationships and behavior and why things are the way they are. So I can see a clear pattern of how we find you as a brand where you are today. But back then, I'm not sure if it was certain. What did you do after school?
So after school, I went to 5 different colleges before I figured out what I really wanted to do. I finished school and then I said to myself, I think that I really want to work in and around this kind of style, image, you know, identity world. And then I found myself working with people like T.D. Jakes and all these kind of influential people because I got drug into this world that I had no business being in, that I wasn't ready for. But that's kind of what happened after school.
Very quickly, how do you then come to South Africa?
So I was minding my business in the States and I meet this woman. At this time I'm living in New York. And I meet this woman who was from here who hated America physically. She's like, I'm going home. So she was doing her master's degree. When she graduated, she's like, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Like this American thing is BS.
Yeah.
So I'm going home where I can live my real dream. So I was like, okay, bye. And then after like a year or so, I came here to visit. And I was so shocked and blown away by this place that, you know, at that time I was writing about personal branding and I decided, let me see if the Star newspaper will accept my column. So I wrote an article and then sent it to the Star newspaper. And when I went back to New York, I started getting emails galore from people on the ground interested in this personal branding stuff. So they accepted that column and then I came back to visit again. I started meeting the people who was literally emailing me, and then I was like, I think I can base myself here. And that's what happened. It was a Star newspaper that really ushered me, and I was getting hundreds of mails.
Yeah.
Remember when Dali Pofo was CEO of SABC?
I remember, yes.
He emailed me once. Imagine that. Somebody who's a no-name, out of nowhere, who's just writing a column, he emailed me about his personal brand when he was CEO of the SABC.
I want to park it there because I'm glad you speak about the brand. There's the SABC, you know, Dalimpofu who's interested in that. Now he's on the likes of your Destiny Mag, Forbes Women, what am I forgetting? CNBC, what else? Yeah. Cliff Central, all of those. So how did he get that right? We'll find out after the break. Stay with us.
Talking to you about branding. We always chat about branding. It's your basically your strong point in life. How do you excel in branding yourself well?
Well, essentially a brand is an ambassador for your values. And it's about authenticity and congruency. One of the things that I love about branding, it's like we are wired to associate your image with your essence. So if you see a lion and it starts barking, you get really uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you've been told that the lion is supposed to roar.
Yeah.
So that authenticity between the look of the lion and what you expect from it is where the true branding power is.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. We continue our conversation with Timothy Maurice Webster, and I want to get free branding advice from him now. It's the perks of my job. Timothy, at some stage, I remember you were everywhere. You're still busy now, but there was a time when if there's anything to do with branding in any way, shape, or form, you're the go-to guy. What was that like?
You know, it's interesting because we talked about the Star newspaper. At that stage, that newspaper was going out to a broad sect. Like it was being read by whites, blacks, different types of people. And there was just a demand, because that column was called Personal Brand Philosophy. So because I wrote the first personal branding book in the country, there was just major demand about what is this thing about. I feel like I could potentially have a brand and a story that mattered to people, so everybody wanted to hear it. So the demand was, it was crazy, as I've never asked to be on anybody's show. So it was wild. Like, I remember, I've been on so many SABC shows. At some point, people were calling me going, who are you affiliated with?
Yeah, who sent you?
Who sent you there? What's going on? We're not sure.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I feel like that anytime something is new, and you have to ride it in your career, you got to know where you fit, and just physically get on top of it and ride it, you know?
And then you started, you know, sharing the knowledge that you have, not only on platforms such as radio and television, print media, newspapers, magazine, etc. You start writing your own books. You did mention the first one, 4-time best-selling author. That is no small feat. How did you get that right?
So ordinary people like yourself, other people would call me or email me and go, this is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And then I would get called into companies, and I would relate the content to people. So it wasn't like I'm just talking randomly. It's from those emails.
Yeah.
So you're learning with people.
Having your ear to the ground.
Having your ear to the ground.
Love
So
it.
people want that content. And I think what's important is that anybody who's looking to write or publish or anything, you got to be relevant. You got to engage people, because this was, my first book came out 2007-ish. And that book was kind of right before social media hit. So, you know, it was a dynamic in place where you didn't have that instant kind of feedback. If you are writing now, you've got to put your finger on the pulse of who's following you and really pay attention to what's happening in this sort of social media world, where I didn't have that luxury for that book.
Look, I mean, I'm looking at the picture behind you, and you're signing the book. Is this a 4th book?
Yeah, this is the 4th book
the 4th
published
book.
by Indalo Media.
Yes.
What happened with this was, right after we published it, they called us, one of the big banks called and said, we want you to sign 1,000 copies and send it to our women leaders across the business.
No way.
That was a moment, because they didn't want us just to send the book. They wanted every person to have my autograph. But it was something special about them wanting my signature.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That was a moment for me.
Wow. You say you're living the South African dream. What does that mean?
You know what that means is, right now, I have a young woman who designs my website from Orlando West. I met her at 10 years old. When I met her, it was part of a leadership program we did on weekends. Her name is Kanye Sile. Kanye had just lost both parents of HIV when I met her. And I'm getting a little emotional, because she was supposed to be a statistic. And our team, the people she was working with in her community, got her into the Oprah School. So she's one of the first graduating class of the Oprah School. Now she's graduating from, she graduated from UJ, and she's just been hired by Investec.
What?
She starts February 2019. And that's the dream. The dream is to take people who come from situations where the legacy of apartheid was supposed to write them off, was supposed to bury them, was supposed to be a statistic. And to be able to have and put collaborations together, to put conversations together, to put business models together that we can grow together, that's a dream.
And as beautiful as dreams can be, every now and again, they can become nightmarish. What has been the challenge for you, those difficult moments in your journey?
In South Africa?
In South Africa.
I would say South Africa has been so welcoming to me. So most of my really tough moments happened back in the States. So I remember, so I came here, to give context, I came here when I was 30 years old. And, you know, the biggest, most challenging moment where I locked myself into my apartment and I didn't want to come out for 3 days was after I published my second book. It went straight to the bestseller list. It was, I think it was an anniversary of Long Walk to Freedom.
Yeah.
So the Long Walk to Freedom book had shot back to the top. You know when there's a big moment, a book can resurge?
Yes.
and Malcolm Gladwell's book. So the top 3 books on the bestseller was Malcolm Gladwell's book, Long Walk to Freedom, and then my book. And I got a call from the publisher that we had made a mistake, because my laptop had been stolen in Rosebank, and I had made a big mistake in, I think it was chapter 4 or something like that. And they said, we've got to republish this book. Yo, dude, I had interviews lined up. It was massive. And the demand for this thing, and they had to, imagine having to reach out to everybody and say, guys, that book, you've got to get rid of it, and we're going to republish. And the book signing, guys, let me tell you how big this book signing was and why this was so hard. Have you ever seen a book signing featured in Sunday World? My word. You know that gossip 2 pages? Yes. There was 2 pages of my book signing.
No.
All celebrities was there, David Clowley, all these, it was massive. So on the back of this massive book signing, shot to the top, sorry, Tim, we've got to yank your book from the shelves.
You are kidding me.
It was the most humbling, gripping thing I've ever had happen in my career. And I sucked it up. I mean, first of all, I cried. I was on my bed in my apartment, literally in tears, and I did not come out for, I think it was 4 days. I canceled everything, and I just had to process, what does this mean? And what I realized as a writer, if you're going to be serious, you know, it helped me mature as a writer. And we redid that book, and it was reprinted 8 times. It's become like a cult classic. Wow. Even now, the demand for that book is wild. It's insane. So it helped me mature as a professional and get real serious, so that nothing is an excuse. No matter if your laptop was stolen before the whole iCloud days, I realized that as a serious professional, you got to be checking and double checking and back checking everything. And so now when I'm writing, you know, even my partner, she gives me a hard time. She's like, what are you doing? You still on your computer at this time? So it's forced me to become real serious.
My goodness. Okay, there's a lot of seriousness going on, and I know that the sky is just the beginning for you. So when we come back, I want to touch on where to now, but I also want us to relax a little bit, you know, go easy on the serious stuff. So what does he do for fun? What are his hobbies? What does he suck at? If you want to find out, stay with us. Welcome back, and once again, thank you very much for joining us. Timothy Maurice Webster, that is our guest today, and we've already discussed how he got so massive as a brand. The only question, I suppose, is where to now, right? So, Tim, what's going on in your life at the moment? I know you've got such an interest in neuroscience. I've been listening to your podcast.
You know, I'm obsessed with neuroscience. I'm obsessed with the root of why we do what we do. I mean, if you look at the trajectory of my career, so the Destiny magazine found out about me through the Star newspaper, right? Then I started writing for Destiny. Then Forbes found out about me through Destiny.
Sure.
You see how everything has built on. So then I got exposed to this sort of neuroscience world through a neuroscientist who became a friend of mine, and then I went back to MIT to study. And now I've become really obsessed with understanding how people, specifically, let's take you for example, how does your story land in your market's mind, in your consumer's mind, in your audience's mind? How do we get your story? How do we get Ayanda's name to kind of sit in people's subconscious so that it means something valuable, so you can trade on that value? All of us make an impression, right? All of us story resonates somewhere, like somebody is thinking about your story right now and they're somewhere smiling, thinking about it. Or somebody's thinking about your story and the value of your business is going down. So your story sits in like it's brandished into somebody's mind. This 5th book that I'm actually working on came to me because I was actually asked to write this book. And essentially it's the daughter of one of these kind of political kind of icons who I'm talking about how she built her brand and how she was broken and how she built herself back up. And so it's going to be very interesting and very different. So my first book is Introducing Personal Branding. My second book was about reinventing your brand. The third book was about authentic branding. And then the 4th book was about, it's called Personal Brand Intelligence, which looked at this idea of what is the most intelligent, from a neuroscience way to build your brand. And now it's a practical case study. So it's been a natural, everything has progressed naturally. And it's sort of an organic look at the evolution of who I've become. And that's kind of how it's been.
And one thing that I love about you and your work is that everything around you informs the work that you do. I mean, even when you're relaxing or you're, hanging out or just, with friends or with a special friend who's here today, and Cooper's here, in fact. Even Cooper is helping you with the work that you do and explaining just human behavior. First, I need you to tell the story of how you ended up with Cooper, because you were never a pet person, right?
Yeah, no, a year ago, if you had put a dog on my lap, I probably would have fainted. No, I'm not exaggerating.
Really?
I was terrified of dogs, and I didn't, not only did I not like dogs, I didn't want them close to me.
Really?
So this would have never happened. And one of the reasons why this dog has changed my life so dramatically is because how it happened that I started to appreciate dogs. So my partner was wanting a dog for a long time. And I just said, no, you will not bring a dog around me, otherwise we're just going to break up. It's fine.
Yeah.
You want a dog, then go on with your life, and there's plenty of guys who will want you and your dog. So one day I came home from a trip, and before I turned the key to the door, I hear a dog.
There's a barking going on there.
And I walk in, and I look on the couch, and it's the dog, her, and her shady friend. And I'm like, I ignore them, and I just go. Over the next couple of days, the dog gets sick. She says to me, we need to take this dog to a veterinarian at 3 in the morning. Turns out the dog hadn't been dewormed properly, and he was about to die.
Sure.
So they give him deworming medication, and we get back home, and then she has to leave, and I'm now stuck with the dog. And the dog
you didn't want.
Yeah, and then the dog's about to die, and he's looking at me like, dude, I'm about to die. Do something.
Yeah.
Pet me, something. And in the first couple of days, I literally ignored this dog when he was about to die, because I don't want the dog. It's not my dog.
Yes.
So,
but look at those eyes.
Yeah,
they eventually got to you, right?
I didn't care. So anyway, what happened was, he started to fight himself back. He started to build himself back up. And one day I took him out for a walk, and then he acted like he wanted to run. And then I like to run, so we started running together.
Oh.
Now we do like 5, 7K runs. She came back off her trip, and she was like, I thought about it. I think we should sell the dog. And I'm like, there's no way on earth you selling this dog.
And she's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even now, she wants to sell the dog.
I love that. And I love you, Cooper. And before we go, I need to know something from you that I didn't know before. What's the most surprising thing about you? Do you sing in the shower? Do you dance?
Probably the most surprising thing is that I'm a loner. Like, what happens is, before I go on stage or go out, I just genuinely enjoy being by myself. And me and this dog, like, I can spend 2 days of just us having a conversation. And I talk to this dog, and he talks back.
Yeah.
So he's got certain bark rhythms. I haven't told my partner this, but he tells me.
That's why your partner wants to get rid of the dog.
Yeah, yeah. He tells me when she's doing shady stuff. Like, and he's got like a bark thing. Like, so I know if she's like on the phone with other people, because he looks at it and she doesn't know.
Like, dun,
so
dun, dun.
we've worked. Yeah, we've
He's
worked
like,
out this
you need
thing.
to be careful of Tom.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
not a good guy.
Yeah, so
I saw his text message.
So I don't have to go through her phone enough. It just works out.
Timothy, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
You're a star. Thank you so much.
Whew. Yes, such conversations you don't want to end, but alas, we must. Thank you so much for joining us. I trust you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Let's do it again next week. Bye for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
But Cooper, you're calm with me the whole time, except when we're on.
Guys, I'm going to leave you with a neuroscience tip. I'm going to give you something that fundamentally changes your mind forever about how your brain works. I want everybody to look on the back of the water that they drink. On the back of the water is pH level. If that pH level is between 7 and 8, the water is alkaline. Essentially what the water does is help boost what we call alpha waves. Alpha waves help you make new connections in the brain. It gives your brain the capacity to be able to be more creative.